Hi, my name is Cassidy Quistorf. I am the director of Klamath Film, and with me today is the lead actor and filmmaker behind Mother of Color, Don Jones Redstone, and Ana Del Rocio. Thank you so much for being here, y'all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to discuss. I don't think I may have had a one short screen there one time, but it's a thrill to have the feature film there. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, we're so excited to be having such an empowering and enlightening film in our film festival lineup this year. And from what I've seen, kind of the phrase I've been seeing around it is heal yourself, heal the future. So do you both want to kind of touch a little bit on what that phrase means to you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so I guess just a little bit about the film. It's about a single mother of two who begins getting these messages from her ancestors while she's trying to make it to this, job interview for this job she's dreamt about for a long time. And over the course of the film, she's trying to like unravel and figure out what these messages are. But the thing that ends up kind of coming forward without giving away too much. I guess people are watching this afterward. Is that right?
Yeah.
it'll be on YouTube. So spoiler alert if you haven't seen the film yet. Is that there's this moment where she actually gets to have a conversation with an ancestor, and that scene in particular is, in my mind, this moment of catharsis for the character, but also for the audience. And this kind of the seed is planted that she has some healing to do before she can kind of go forward on her path. And so that's what it means to me in terms of the context of the film, anyway.
And I really appreciate all the sort of ancestral focus that Don brought to the story and to the film. For me, that phrase, what it evokes is, I mean, the nature of parenting is just cross-generational in and of itself, right? You have the next generation that you're responsible for rearing. And me and my parenting, I think about, I'm not just raising this, 1, 2, 3, 4-year-old. I'm raising this person who's going to be an adult and going to have a say in the world and going to have an impact in the world. And I need to impart the best I can into them in terms of their values and their choices and how they check their own power and privilege. And it was so forward facing and future focused in that way. And what Don did with the film, I think, was really zoom out and also carry forward the ancestral part of that story, the generations that came before, because it can be so all consuming when you're just focused on the day-to-day of parenting, the here and now and the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anna, this is also just a personal film, and this highlights your own experience as a community activist. So, how did your real life background influence your portrayal of Noelia in the film?
um, as a new actor, I feel like it was a really good introduction because I didn't have to go very far beyond my memory just to kind of, feel like what it was to be in that moment. And the film is inspired by me. It's not, autobiographical, but it was a good lesson for me. And Don said this the other day about how the personal is universal, and me being able to really go deep into the experience for me. I had to overcome this idea of like, am I just being really self-centered? Is it selfish to just think about me or my story? But when I do that, other people can relate more strongly to it and see themselves related in whatever facet of the emotion I'm going through at any given time. So it was cathartic for me. I told people at some point it also felt like I was unacting at times because in my professional day-to-day life, I would have to put up a front to hide the feelings I was going through, to hide how hard it was to be balancing multiple roles and multiple worries in my mind. On film, on the camera, it was my job to show it. So it was like a redo. I could go back in time and redo what it felt like in an honest and true way.
Wow, that's so interesting. Go ahead, Don.
Well, no, that just like what on it, that exact thing is what, as I've traveled around the country with the film, and it's been an incredible privilege to get to do that. The people that come up to me afterward, like that's the thing that really resonates with them. Like they're so connected to Anna's experience because they recognize it and they feel it. And it's powerful to see something like that portrayed on the big screen for everyone to see and also be feeling. And it just is, Like that's the whole reason I make films. It's just really, really beautiful when that happens, because there is a kind of healing. They're like, to be acknowledged, to be seen. Like that's how people are saying they might feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that phrase, like the personal is universal, and it totally touches on what authors and people in all sorts of creative mediums, when you really tell your own story, you're actually telling the story of so many people and really touching on it. And so that's beautiful that you've been able to have that reception as well. So I'm so curious, how did this film come about? I mean, so you two met, not even in kind of a filmmaking setting, but then Don, were you inspired by Anna? How did the writing go? Do you just want to kind of go through that process?
I'll start and Anna can, or do you want to start, Anna?
No, go ahead, go for it.
Okay, so Anna, yes, Anna and I had met, I think because I interviewed her for a film project. I filmed her for something, and there was a short film that I was working on directing with a group of folks, and I think I just asked Anna if she would be interested in having this part, and she said yes, and that was kind of the beginning of us like getting to work together in an artistic way. And on that short, I saw like her capacity to hold the screen and deliver another like stirring performance. And so years later, I came back to Anna and wondered if we might find another way to work together.
She didn't offer me the part. She made me audition for the part on the short film. Which was terrifying. I did tell her, straight up, like this is not my professional area of training, but I did feel called to figure out how I can contribute to telling a story, because I believe in the power of stories to tell the truth and also to change hearts and minds on a kind of activism, policy making front. So happy to work with Dawn. Dawn has a sterling reputation. Whatever Dawn touches turns to gold. So I was really happy to be part of her, her work, her body of work, and just really inspired by the process of seeing people, in this world take their craft seriously and come together and put something really magical together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so interesting, and I just love how you guys both came together to tell this beautiful, important story. And so, I mean, this film, it balances real world scenarios, with fictional elements. So, how did you both kind of go in different creative directions, whether it's in acting or filmmaking? What kind of creative choices did you make to display and really balance between this kind of fictional side, but also really telling a true story and a true thing that people experience?
I feel like that's in your camera. The ancestor scenes, like your vision for that, I feel like was super clear and sharp from the beginning.
Yeah,
you can talk about that.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, there's just like a million creative decisions that were part of this process in making any feature film, and there's collaborators all along the way. So, for me, like I see my job as director, it started with Anna, and like, how are we collaborating, and how, there's these pieces that she's bringing, and we talked about, okay, this character is not you. Like that was a creative decision, like there's that separation, and how does that affect the performance? If it's not you, knowing it's not you, does it help? We initially did a proof of concept that had Anna's actual kids in it, and then we're like, no, that's not a good idea. We're going to do something different. We shot the proof of concept. I mean, I could talk about any aspect. We shot the proof of concept as an anamorphic, and then we were like, you know what? We actually want the aspect ratio to be different so that we can see all three of them very well on screen, and they're different heights, and the color palette that came into play when we worked with production design and our wardrobe designer, and the DP Sean and I, we talked about initially something that was grittier and more rooted in realism, and then talking with the production designer Von Kimmons, we were like, no, actually maybe let's honor Noelia and her story by actually lifting that and making it's kind of like, I think of it as reality enhanced. There's still that like cinematic look with like the diffused lighting and this nice color palette, but it also, because of the performance and the story we're telling and kind of real time in some moments, there's this urgency that you might get more with realism. So, I mean, there's so many different pieces that I could talk about, but along the way, there was a whole team of people thinking about this with me, and bringing what they do best to the table as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So for both of you, Dawn and Anna, I mean, what are kind of are your focus on now? What projects do you have coming up, or how are you kind of bringing this story and maybe what you learned from working on Mother of Color into with future projects?
For me, my career has taken a complete different trajectory since the film. I think it helped me really come to terms with my relationship to holding both my career and my children, and wanting to switch gears a little bit. I feel like I had gone through a really rigorous couple of years trying to do both things at full speed. And I've taken a step back a little bit now, and I'm really focused on getting my kids through the next phase of their childhood. My older kids in middle school now. So I'm working part-time. I actually, Dom, this is fresh news. I just accepted a fellowship through Western States Center to focus on outreach and organizing against white supremacist activity in the Northwest. So I'm still continuing activism. I'm still, but I'm doing it in a very different way, right? Like the job that I had before that kind of inspired this film was very demanding. It was a function of my success. It was a function of, like, I'll brag a little bit, like my competence and my ability to really ascend to a really high position at the top of a nonprofit organization. But it was not compatible at the end of the day with what I needed to do with my family. So I scaled back, thought really deeply about it for a long time. And I'm still working just in a different way, and really still focused on activism and organizing, on changing the place that my family and I are growing up in.
I'm still hoping to pull you into a short film or something sometime.
I'm hoping.
Can't leave the art world entirely. Well, I have a day job. It is a business that I run that does offers video production. I say for like community-minded businesses. I'm also currently doing some creative direction for another larger video production company. And then I have Mother of Color, which is still not completely finished. I just signed a deal for distribution and streaming, so I'm hoping I have to get all those deliverables in place, and then maybe by end of year we'll be able to say where we'll be able to let folks know where they can find us online. I'm also wanting to put together like kind of an art DVD with like the director's commentary and a special cover, and like there's a bunch of pieces that I really want to document this whole process of what we did, and show people. I'm so incredibly proud of like how everybody came together, and what we're holding up, and like seeing the response from others. And I love this idea of just like having this package where it's preserved for me, and it's just a way to like share even more about like how this was made, and some of the things that people haven't seen yet about kind of the creative process as well. So that's still happening. And then I did just get a small grant that's I'm working on a new project that's a proof of concept, potentially for a feature that's about a woman who agrees to have this experimental device attached to her that will give her the capacity to regrow her ability to feel. It's a sci-fi comedy. And Ashley is currently, who's one of the producers on Mother of Color, is a producer and actor in it as well. And then I have some other stuff that I'm writing, but that's all. It's all like that stuff is like on the side of my paid work, so sometimes it can go slow. But it's happening. It's all happening somehow.
That's amazing. First of all, congratulations to both of y'all with this very exciting news. I feel like this is like groundbreaking news right here happening. And I feel like just this whole Mother of Color team just has some kind of special sauce, like some serious sparkle going on, because not only do you see that in the film, but you see it with your love of the stories and how you're both sharing it, and also with Ashley, who's on a cover shoot. So y'all must be doing something right There's amazing going on. But yeah, you touched a little bit on it with kind of the reception of how this film has gone and people coming up and saying how it resonates with them. But what has this kind of whole film festival circuit been like for you, and how has it been going so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been good. We've screened in New York a few times. We've screened in LA a few times. Seattle, Tacoma is where we kicked it all off. St. Louis, San Antonio, Texas. I don't know if I can list them all, but we've been around in a time when I feel fortunate to get into any festival. Right now, there's a ton of content, and I know people. I've been that person that's like not getting stuff, so I just never take it for granted. And I also just know that it's like, it has to be something that you are proud of and you connect with, and that's the most important thing, regardless. But it is this like super bonus, like heart feeling when you get to actually sit in the room. That's what the festivals do for me. You get to sit in the room with people and feel what they're feeling. And especially because, I had this particular desire with this film, and yes, like connecting with Anna and her story and illuminating the stories of folks that might see themselves. But it's also like I want this communal acknowledgement of like how hard the world is right now. In some ways, like that's what that catharsis ends up being about. And it's it's like going to church or something. I mean, I don't know if I should say that because I don't really go to church, but it's what I imagine. It's what I want church to be like, like just this feeling of being in community and feeling, and again, just like having that release and sense of healing. And like that's the thing that I get. And I will say it doesn't happen every time. I've screened at one place where it was like, middle of the week, like before people got out of work, and weren't that many people there. And then I've been other places where we like pack the theater, and it just every festival is completely different. It depends on their audience and who, how it just ended up getting promoted and who came out. But when that happens, like that's so magical, and it just feels like I see the power of film and how it can impact individuals and be what one of my friends called a community organizing experience unto itself.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that, and your passion for it, and for the experiences that you've had. And Anna, since people like your friends in your community seeing you as an actress in a full feature film, what has that response been like for you? Have they been like, "Oh my gosh, we had no idea," and you were like, "I didn't either, but I guess I'm just like an actor." And did your kids see it?
They did see it. I watched it with them at home. By ourselves. I didn't want to really watch it with them in public yet because I wasn't sure how they were going to respond to the public's response to it. It's also, for kids, it's different to see some things that might remind you of what you went through on screen, even if it's not 100% autobiographical. So it's been a weird mix of things. I think, it's really illuminated for me how much I compartmentalize my life. I think that for my inner circle, a lot of what they saw on screen was like, yeah, that's what she went through, some of it. But a lot of people had no idea, right? That this is what I was kind of juggling behind the scenes. It's left me with the impression that, I have more opportunities to be more honest and transparent and authentic about what the day-to-day is like. Because a lot of parents, feel like it's not relevant to bring up, oh, like I had to go pick up my kid at 10 a.m. because they were sick from daycare. Like all these things that we don't think to mention that are really important and relevant and give a glimpse into what people are balancing day to day. So it was a mix of responses. My hope is that the story, the theme of childcare, which is so central to the film, that it stays relevant, that it stays top of mind for folks the way it started to become a little bit in the pandemic, but it's at risk of, I think, disappearing back into the background as things start to go back to quote unquote normal. So my hope is that it'll stay, in people's minds as a fresh thing to be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an amazing blend of all these different central topics that have come into play with Mother of Color, whether it's, intergenerational trauma and how we move forward and healing and childcare and social justice. And the fact that it was so just beautifully done and well conceived, I just have all Klamath Film is just so lucky to have it in our film festival. So I know you were saying you've been on the other end where there's so much quality content and everything. And we have absolutely seen that with our submissions this year, like just the amount of quality products that people have been putting out and been getting creative and everything. So we're really fortunate to be able to show that and to show this film. And we hope the Klamath Falls community and those watching online really enjoy it. But were there any last thoughts or comments on Mother of Color or future projects or the themes overall that y'all wanted to touch on before we wrap up today?
No, I'm looking forward to recording this DVD thing. I hope people can go and watch those interviews that we do. There's one scene in particular that I'm really excited to talk more about, and maybe we can like give a little preview here. But there's one scene where Noelia is getting on the bus, and she's has to hold all these things like her stroller and her car seat, and we did that scene so many times because Dawn kept telling me I made it look too easy. Because I had done it so many times in my life. And I spent like a whole therapy session on that with my therapist. Like, you know, I remember it often in my day-to-day life. Like, don't make it look so easy, right? Just because I can, like, make it look how hard it actually is. So people actually get the sense of like, this is not normal. This is not how kids are supposed to be raised. But yeah, that scene was really interesting and illuminating. And I haven't received a lot of comments about it from people because the whole gist for me of that scene was to really focus on the white man who did nothing, who didn't like offer to help out, carry something. He was just holding his own small little bag while she was overwhelmed with all these things. But nobody mentioned that. Nobody mentioned like the bystander effect, the do nothing effect, which had an impact on Noelia as well. So I'm curious to hear how that landed for people. But yeah, I'm just really excited for people to watch it and look out for the distribution and to watch the commentaries that we do.
It just reminds me of how when we did have our Portland screening, you know, we filled the Hollywood Theater. It was like 384 people, but there were so many mothers of color that were there. And I feel like sometimes you don't know what people are thinking until afterward if they choose to come up to you. So one, just know that I love to hear if anyone's watching this and you have something you want to say, reach out to us. Like we love to hear what people think of it or how they're connecting with it or how they're not connecting, you know, whatever it is. I'd love to hear it. That's one of the things I hate about the pandemic and just having been separated from audiences in some way. So of course I always want to be in the room with people and hear what people think. But I just remember there's a scene later where the car seats get left in a lift, and I just in the theater when we were at the Hollywood, I saw like multiple like mothers around me be like, "You left the car seat!" Like before, and they say he's left the car seat, he's left the car seat before anyone else like kind of realized or thought about it because you don't see it. And if you don't have a kid, it might not be something you're thinking about.
Invisible mental load. Yep.
There you go. Yes. Anyway, it's like that's the audience we love to be with when we're watching it. But it's really there's kind of something for everybody to grab onto in terms of, you know, thinking about the state of the world, thinking about where you come from, thinking about reckoning with white supremacy, thinking about parenting, thinking about how work should you know bend to what workers need rather than the other way around. There's so many different themes. So yeah, I'm just glad that if anyone connects with it, you know, we get a chance to potentially connect with those folks. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for chatting with us today. And thank you so much for putting the story into the world for those to see and share with. So yeah, thank you so much for being a part of our film festival this year.